back. Within Reason with Bob Kerrigan and Bill Rankin. Bob is away, and with me is Rick Outzen. And I can't think of anybody who knows local politics as well as you do, and is willing to talk about it and broadcast it and put it in newspapers and blogs. I hope you didn't miss the last segment, because basically the last segment was the county commission. We're going to turn to the city of Pensacola. What's going on in the city of Pensacola?
Well, you know, the city is still wrestling with the new form of government. We have a city council that has spent most of the last year attacking the mayor, attacking his staff, both publicly and privately, and has been at odds. And we're seeing on the local level just a taste of what we've seen happen in Congress for the last 2 years. And the News Journal's done a great job in one of the editorials they wrote about the city council being in a bubble, because they truly are in a bubble, and that they don't really understand how they look to the public, or the fact that no one can figure out what are they really truly trying to achieve other than to hurt someone or to grab power. And then you throw into the mix, now you have people trying to take advantage of the discord. And of course, the most obvious one that we've seen in the last couple of weeks is the police union, FOP.
That's a great story. Give us the whole story there, the gallery night and all that's going on.
You know, it's got a lot of moving pieces to it, like all these stories do. And what we know is that since the beginning of the year, and you served on the Pension Advisory Committee that made recommendations at the end of last year, that the city has to do something about its pension plans. It's spending $16 to $18 million a year of contributions towards the pension, when its ad valorem taxes are more like $13 to $14 million. If it weren't for ESP, if it weren't for natural gas and some of the other sources of income, they couldn't cover the pension payments. And when they have an unfunded balance, it's in hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's an issue that we knew was going to be coming up this year. As a whole, Dave Penzone has done a really good job working with the mayor and Dick Barker and their group of negotiating.
Right? Dave Penzone does this for pro bono
publico. He's doing it.
Dave Penzone, I just can't say enough about this guy, because he was the chairman of our commission, and he did about 99% of the work. I mean, he's responsible for a really good report that came out. He's a CPA. He's a retired CPA. He's also a lawyer. He's got a law degree anyway. Very, very intelligent, very perceptive guy. And he has, if you hired a consultant to do what David done, you probably have to pay him $200,000. He's just so valuable. He has
no, he's doing it for all the reasons that we want to see community service done as a public service. And so they went into the year knowing that they had to do something about pensions. And the primary thing they're looking at was to go ahead and try to close down the city's pensions and move everyone to the Florida retirement system. It's what Escambia County has. It's what the sheriff's office does. We did this in the city of Gulf Breeze when I was a city council member back in the 90s, because it just manages your cost and contributions better. So we knew he went into it. The mayor knew he had to do it. He told the council, this is where we're going. They were able to get the general workers to agree. They got a tentative agreement out of the firefighters, and then they have an agreement with the lieutenants, with the police. But the sergeants and the rank and file have rejected every offer that's been made to them. And as every offer was being made, they would up what Rob Larkin, who's the chief negotiating, the attorney representing the city, is called unfair labor practices. They immediately, in July, they released a letter saying that they asked the mayor to terminate his chief of staff, for somehow that's upsetting them and keeping them from signing the agreement.
Nonsense.
We have, they go to the council meeting, go through the budget. Councilman Larry Johnson tries to move the salary of the chief of staff, although he doesn't claim that's what he was doing. He takes that salary and moves it over to police training. Again, this is a bargaining chip you use in a union negotiation. It's not where the council should be interfering. And then 2 weeks ago, we find out that they have gallery night. Gallery night ends at 9 o'clock, not at like midnight like it has. The mayor had thought that an agreement had been worked out that it would last till midnight. He's down on Palafox Street with his family. The police start rolling people through. He gets upset with how it's handling. He's upset really with the crowd's reaction to how the police were doing it. He pulls an officer aside. They try to, let's calm this down. Let's handle this differently. And then we have, so it happens. We get past that. All of a sudden, at the same time, the city declares impasse, meaning that the union's not accepting any of their offers. It's going to have to go to a negotiator, a mediator. They declare impasse. The following council meeting, the FOP goes to the council meeting and claims that the mayor was intimidating to the police. He was disheveled. I mean, he was, they insinuate a lot of things.
They said the mayor was disheveled, and which is nonsense.
And they asked the council to investigate. Now, the council doesn't investigate the mayor's gallery night attendance. That's not within their privy.
What could they do?
But the union, it's not part of the union contract. The union's contract is if they believe he was intimidating or hurt an employee, she or he can file a grievance through their agreement. They refused to do that. We had our reporter ask them, why didn't you file a grievance? Well, no, we want the council to negotiate. Well, we found out why. Because according to Rob Larkin, this same Larry Johnson, the councilman for District 3, had already told Larkin that he would bring the police to the table if they would fire the mayor's chief of staff.
Good grief. So
all of a sudden, we have a council member, allegedly he has denied the conversation. He's denied that he had anything to do with the letter. He's denied that his motion to move money that happened sort of matches the chief of staff's salary, that had anything to do with it. He's denied all these things, and we haven't had this many denials since Karl Rove on election night. So this is where we're set. They are at an impasse. It's probably the best thing to go to impasse.
Because they can't. They were trying to hold them up. We will allow the new hires to come on without a pension, but you've got to give all of us a lot of extra money, and the city can't afford it. Now look what's going on here, folks. I mean, the police who take a job where they're going to have to face down drunks, criminals, armed felons, they're just going to have to put up with the worst in society. They just can't stand the fact that the mayor talked nasty to them. Come on, that's just stupid.
And what we've done, I mean, we put out a cry. We've asked, did anyone have video of this? Did anyone have video of the police? And we haven't had anyone come forward. We do have a records request in for any video that was in the police cars, and we have asked for that, and that is being edited for us now. And hopefully we'll have it soon. But we've gone out to try to purposely find witnesses to this, altercation or losing his temper or whatever seemed to be so upsetting to the police. And to this day we haven't been able to get anything. But we've aggressively gone after it. Because if there is video, I would like to see it. But we haven't been able to get it yet. But it does. This is all part of union negotiation. It's someone taking advantage, a group taking advantage of the discord between the council and the mayor's office, and I don't think the citizens are being best served at this.
Very good, very good. It's important. Listen, without you just wouldn't know this stuff without the News Journal, without Rick and his newspaper.
Right.
I really am in fear of. They say it's not going to happen. The News Journal just folding up somehow because they've got. You don't think so?
No, and Nate Monroe.
They've gotten a lot skinnier.
Well, Nate Monroe has done a great job covering for them, and they have a good staff. I think that what bothers me more is this new wave where the government has their own television channels now.
Yeah.
And their deal but they're now skewing their information based on what their politics are, what those elected officials. So you have, Escambia County has its own. The county commissioners are cutting TV spots every day about how great they are, how good they are. You're not getting objective information. The sheriff's office has built a studio. So we're having people creating their own media, which it's okay. I mean, I'm not freedom of speech, but it muddies the water in that they, rather than really responding to information, they can create their own set of facts.
Freedom of speech is great. It's the greatest thing about this country. I'm a First Amendment absolutist, but when the Sheriff's Department is saying, you can't cut my budget, I actually need more money, or else there'll be less law enforcement, and he's got a media operation going, that's something we ought to look at.
Right.
Say, well,
and
Sheriff,
the taxpayers are paying for it.
If you're out of money, get rid of the TV studio and the press people and the people who are hired just to make you look good, and put that to law enforcement. The sheriff has been somewhat disappointing.
Well, I'm a big supporter of Morgan. I think Morgan as a whole is better than what we had before, and I think that so I'm not. I'm going to be a little different.
The guy, he's professional. There's no reason to think he isn't honest and hardworking. But what do you think? What do you take of that whole business with that thing around his neck and the medals and all of that? You think that's just some little superficial foible?
Well, to me, it doesn't make my streets safer. It doesn't make them any less safe. To me, it was a side issue that he earned those medals. He has the right to wear them.
That's debatable. He earned the medals. There's no doubt about that. We looked into it, but I don't think he's got the right to put them.
Of all the things we deal with, to me, that was ponies and balloons.
That's a good point. I just see it as a tell because of his reaction to it. I mean, he just appears to be something of a narcissist and somewhat autocratic. Because when somebody challenged that, there's nothing wrong with somebody saying, I did this today. Not that I'm a model for anybody. I was taking this big position. I was going to get affidavits because this lawyer was overcharging. And I listened to him, and I thought, well, that's exactly what I'd do. I don't think I overcharge people. So then I backed away and I said, listen, well, I'm changing our position on this. I got approval from the other people involved. I said, I'm just going to back away from this because you've convinced me. And there's nothing wrong with that. And he should have said, well, I've taken another look at this issue, and if some people are offended by it, I'll leave the medals off. Everybody knows I'm an Air Force veteran and all that.
Well, I take a more, macro view. Is our sheriff's office better than it was, when he took office 4 years ago? Without a doubt, it is.
Well, you're right. You're no less safe because he's wearing medals all over.
No,
him.
you're
That's
not.
true.
And he's cleaned up a whole lot of operations. You can't. It's not who your buddy is anymore as far as how you're arrested or not arrested. And I think they run a much cleaner office, and I think it makes a big difference. So
that's great. Okay. Oh, here's an issue that's been of great interest to me all along, and I don't know if you reported on it, I don't know where I saw it, whether it was on your blog somewhere or something connected with the paper, but the Occupy story is still going, which is amazing to me.
The story that will not die is Occupy. They're fighting still with the city, went to federal court over their right to camp out on city property.
Now this started, they were at Martin Luther King Plaza, and they were going to camp like they did in Zuccotti Park in New York, though that's been long disbanded.
Right.
And then the city said, well, come on down, you're blocking traffic here or something, come on down and we'll let you have your protest on the City Hall lawn. And then what happened? Then they wanted tents or something.
Well, actually they had a camp. It was an encampment, and then they were able to worked the law where they were limited it to the sidewalk area, to the very corner of the property. But I mean, they had full kitchens. They were showing movies.
For
they
a while.
Had a library.
Yeah. Did you go down there though?
I did. We actually, we had Jeremy covered it. We called it the Great Camp Out. And it was big. And they still had a presence up until the hurricane.
Did any of them make any sense though? Because I went down there and talked to them about, well, what do you want? What are you looking for? And it was somewhat incoherent.
Oh, there was no. It was an amoeba. It had no real. They had no solid.
Focus.
They had different, 4 or 5 different agendas. Everyone was there for a different reason. I liked it because the initial Occupy was focused on Wall Street, and we saw the financial crisis and how so few of those people that caused the crisis profited from it. Felt very little pain.
That's right. Reason to be upset.
So so I thought initially when it happened, and we picked it up early. Our friends in New York called me and said, "Hey, you got to start watching this and see if it happens in Pensacola." And because it really initially, I thought it brought great attention to that.
It did. So the fact that it was Wackoville, I mean, I was there at Zuccotti Park in the middle of it, and there are people holding up signs, property is theft.
It was all over the place.
Wacky.
It was socialist, communist, it was libertarian, and I think in the end that's why it never really achieved anything, because it tried to, one of its charms was that it had no organization, but it was also its downfall.
Forgive all debt.
Right. It was kind of all over the place, and so we have the last remnants of this. It is in Alistair McKenzie is has really doing a very good job dealing with it. Took it to federal court. Judge Vincent said, no, there were laws in place. You don't have this right.
Alistair McKenzie is energetic.
He is.
But the idea that free speech gives you a right to set up tents on City Hall property has just never been part of First Amendment jurisprudence.
Right.
I mean, they're boldly taking a nonsensical position.
Right. And I think that's where it is now. That the federal judge is rejected that argument. Now the battle is the city is looking to go after them for expenses, which they say could be $100,000.
Which I don't understand. And maybe that's something that, or I might call Mr. McKenzie about it and just ask him. Because generally speaking in this country, the losing side does not have to pay the winning side's attorney's fees, generally speaking. There's some laws that allow the winner to get attorney's fees, and where you generally hear of it is a matter of contract.
Right.
If you run out on your lease, when we sue you, you got to pay our attorney's fees.
And that concerns me too, because I'm not sure with the freedom of speech issue, where that would make it pretty onerous for someone.
It's a bit chilling, isn't it?
To raise it up. It would make it pretty onerous. So.
And I wonder who in the cities, and I guess the city's lawyers say, no, we're not doing that or something. That's something maybe we can find out.
Well, I think the last we heard from Derek Kosen was that they are going to pursue the fees. That it has whether McKenzie and his group decide to appeal the decision. They're saying they will. And we've got, my understanding, and I haven't followed all of it, is that there are about 4 or 5 of these cases around the country that are all headed towards the Supreme Court. So they at some
They'd
point,
like to be in that march to the Supreme Court.
They might get all packaged together. I've heard that. I haven't done any research on it yet, but I was hearing that there are several cases, maybe 4 or 5 that are around the country, and that they're all similar, and that the Supreme Court, it may be packaged in a way to go that direction.
I'd like to ask the city. Here's a question for the city. After you're done looking like bullies and get a judgment against them for $100,000, which of those citizens has anything like $100,000 or 2 cents?
Right.
I mean, what is the point of pursuing a piece of paper, because it makes it look like you've been kind of on the good guy side all along, and say, well, nice fight, we won, you lost, have a nice day. Right. Rather than we're going to try to get fees from people who don't have any fees.
I would agree completely.
Yeah. We're coming up to another break. I am Bill Rankin. With me is Rick Outzen, the editor of the Pensacola Independent News and the author of Rick's blog. And I'm telling you, we're not finished yet, but this has been a pleasure. We're going to take a short break. Stay with us. We got one more segment on Within Reason. We'll be back.